Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Demon Folklorist. I am, as you've probably used your deductive skills, the Demon Folklorist. So today we're going to be talking about Christmas monsters, but before we do that, we need to talk about that there are mermaid-like creatures in the Book of Enoch, and I did not find out until I'd already submitted my Sirens and Mermaids episode, so sorry about that, y'all. I swear I did the research, but it just didn't come up. I haven't read the entire Book of Enoch. I read the relevant parts for my book, and then anything I found interesting, this was just like a random thing in there, that the women who mated with these like angelic kind of beings called the sons of God, which is alluded to in Genesis. So it's not just like Book of Enoch coming out of left field being like, hey, what's up? By the way, there were giants and everything, and this happened to these people. Yeah, no. It's more like the Book of Enoch goes deeper into that story. So the sons of God are thought to be these beings that were created to watch over humanity, and they're also called the Watchers. And that perhaps they were angels. I don't personally think so, and neither do biblical scholars. They think that they were some kind of other creation that was specifically intended to watch over humans as we were developing while God was off doing big things somewhere else. I don't know what he was doing, but that was their task. And some of them mated with humans. And this was like, God was pissed. So the flood came along and washed away all the giants who were getting out of hand and eating people and doing crazy stuff. They washed away the giants, that washed away all the evil people, I guess that was supposedly happening. But that's what the flood was specifically for. I think according to the Book of Enoch, don't quote me on that, but that's what it's thought to be for. That it wasn't actually about the evil that was going on in the world at the time, although I'm sure God was like, that's not good. The point is that the flood washed them all away, including the sons of God, but their spirits remained. And some people think that's the start of demons and how they came into the world, like the spirit of the sons of God, who were probably cast out of heaven if God was that pissed. Or it was the Nephilim. The Nephilim are those giants, those offspring of the sons of God and human women. And supposedly the sons of God also taught them makeup and weaponry and I want to say astrology, but that could be wrong. But all sorts of things that humans were not really meant to know, that it was angelic knowledge or quasi-angelic knowledge. So the Book of Enoch's really fascinating, and I do need to just sit down and read the whole thing. But sorry, I did not include this. But what happened to the human women that mated with the sons of God? Because apparently they were punished too. But I'm like, okay, we're a new civilization. We're starting out. Why would they be punished? Why would they know that's even wrong? Right? So I don't get it. But apparently they were turned into sirens. And now perhaps their punishment, maybe they're a reminder, or they drag men to the depths with their singing because once they tempted, I don't know, the sons of God. I think that's so on the sons of God, though, but whatever. And then I think it was because the TikTok algorithm figured out I was talking about sirens and stuff after listening to my podcast recording because I use my phone for notes. So it came up with this other video. There was a fisherman. I'm sure some of you have seen it where he's like on a boat late at night and there's something like really fast in the water. And it doesn't look like a dolphin. It looks like a really, really thin like fish, but like long. And there's a very strange song and it's very otherworldly and ethereal. I don't know if it's real because of the way like you can manipulate video these days. I've never been like a debunker when it comes to photographs and video because I don't know how that works, but there are other people who do that. I do like that folklore aspect of it, that we don't know if that's true or not. What if what we were seeing was the absolute truth, and what we were hearing was absolute truth too, that this fisherman was out there and he heard them singing. I love that idea. So I don't think it matters, like, to be honest, because it just keeps the stories going. And these stories are wonderful and fun. And as long as they're not hurting anybody, I don't see the problem, honestly, even with faking some things. Although the Skinwalker videos have gotten a little out of control. So, yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Christmas monsters. If you think Christmas time isn't spooky, you need to think again, because the actual custom of telling spooky stories through oral tradition began long before stories were even written down. So, long before electricity and all that good stuff. During such a dark time of the year, which, you know, is the purpose of Yule, to make light during a dark time of the year, it's a pagan holiday, it gave people something to do during these bitterly cold nights before electricity when they were huddled around the fire. During the Industrial Revolution, the steam-powered printing press made these kind of stories much more accessible. So people could finally use the stories they were already telling and make some money off of it. So that's what happened. And, you know, like, if you really think about some of the most famous Christmas stories, like A Christmas Carol, all that sort of thing, like, it's like something super weird happening that's a haunting, essentially. I love that idea that there is such a thing as this, like, gothic Yule spooky vibe, because why should we have to put away our spooky things just because it's Christmas time? I think because it's such a dark time of the year, we can balance the dark and the light as much as we want to. There are also these creatures that were spawned during these storytelling times. And, you know, naturally we're starting with Krampus because he is my favorite. So the first time I ever heard about Krampus, it was from a friend of mine. We were about 15 or 16. We actually might have been older than that. I don't know. Time is hard. But she had randomly come across an article and she sent it to me, and I was like, the fuck is this? Like, yeah, she's like, yeah, he's like demon Santa and he like kills kids and drags them to hell. I'm like, what the fuck? So yeah, that was the first time I'd ever heard of Krampus, and now I just adore him, and I love the movie. I am so psyched that they're possibly going to make a sequel to it that has nothing to do with the original. Apparently it's kind of like anthology, but I love Krampus. He is such an amazing character, and I love the old stories. I love the new things that we do with him now. So anyways, for people who don't know, Krampus is actually from the Alpine region. He's said to be from Germany, but it can't really be proven. It looks like those stories could have been from any part of the Alpine region. Originating in about the 12th century, and he's usually depicted as an evil goat man who would reward good kids and whisk the bad ones away to hell. And we know, I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but this is something I know, like off the top of my head, that a lot of that devil imagery came from depictions of Pan, the woodland god. He's a satyr. And satyrs like have horns, but mostly human bodies and goat legs. And from there, that became how Satan and demons and devils were depicted. So yeah, we get Krampus from those things. The message is really clear here. If you're not good, Krampus is going to come get you. And I've found that a lot of monstrous beings in folklore usually have this, like, they're telling you the story, but really it's a warning for children. You need to be good or this is going to come get you. I talked about this in the Mexican Supernatural episode, that El Cucuy and the Chupacabra and all these things are usually to make you behave as a child, to make you afraid, which is kind of fucked up. But, you know, like, I think it's usually in good fun, especially with the way that Krampus is done now. Krampusnacht, which is Krampus Night, is usually on December 5th. I've also seen it on the 6th, so I'm not sure if that was just like some kind of local celebration. They decided to have it on the next day, but it's usually right around then. And it's primarily a drinking holiday for adults, and then for kids, it's like you get to meet Krampus. And he comes and he jostles the kids and like sometimes throws around his little birch switch and tries to get them, but not quite, because we're not hitting children at these events, right? But it's a way for kids to come face to face with their fears. And that's how it's used. Now, when I told someone in Wyoming about this, they had never heard of Krampus because I was trying to get into the events around here. and they're not ready. They're not ready for Krampus here. Their eyes are getting wider and wider. I'm like, okay, I don't think you're ready for that level of awesomeness, but whatever. Because I suppose that they didn't really understand it. Although many people around here have ancestors from Germany and, would be great to connect to our heritage that way. But also, Wyoming's not really known for being progressive. So I can see why that might be a little bit too much of a change. I think it'd be fun because what people do during Krampus is they dress up as Krampus in these handmade, beautiful costumes of this monster. And it's really interesting the way that people get into it and how they do their own thing with it and their own ideas about what he looks like and where he hails from. You can even see it in the outfits that he wears. Some of them are covered in fur. Some of them, it's just Krampus and he's not wearing clothes. Sometimes he carries chains. Sometimes his tongue is out. Like, all of these different ideas about him are coming from different areas. And I think there's kind of a steam valve thing going on. So in folklore, this is when people need to let off a little bit of steam. So they do that during Krampusnacht, and then kids come face to face with it, and they're less afraid. Most often, kids aren't even crying during this, which is crazy. If you think about how much kids cry during, like, Santa lines, or even meeting Santa, they are usually having a lot of fun. And they do a really similar thing in Japan, I believe, with the Oni. The point is that Krampus is a scary figure, but not the way that he's celebrated. And most often, I think kids walk away with, like, I just came face to face with Krampus. I just faced my fears. I am so brave. Instead of being really, truly afraid. And I think in a lot of ways, us threatening kids with Krampus is really just in jest. That's me. That's what I personally think. Maybe some of it is serious. Like, oh yeah, Krampus is going to take you back to hell and he is going to eat you. Because at times it's either he beats you with the birch switch or he eats you. So, fun stuff. Then there's Belsnickel, who is the Americanized version of Krampus. He's furry, he's soot smeared, he's got like goat-like hair all over him. He's this goat man, like the satyr, and he is Germanic Pennsylvanian kin to Krampus. He has existed since about 1823, and really he's best known by The Office fans because Dwight Schrute dresses up as him one year to honor his heritage, and this figure generally performs using the price of food and drink. He also scares the kids, but usually he gives them candy, so he's not like a fully Krampus drag you to hell type. He's more like, let's have fun, let's dress up, and eventually I'll give you candy. Belsnickel then balances out the excess of others. And the way that he does this is that he goes from house to house accepting like the leftovers so that people don't have too much. And I gotta tell you, maybe we all need a little Belsnickel in our lives. Consumerism is a little out of control. Like, I'm watching these Christmas commercials and I'm like, what is happening? Like, why do people think that you're gonna get a new diamond or a new car for Christmas? Most people are not in that bracket of people that can afford that. I can't even imagine buying a new Lexus right now. And it's like, I get that the commercials are supposed to sort of inspire that, but I don't know anybody who can afford that sort of thing. It's just that I think Belsnickel should make a return because there are people who have too much and they basically don't really know what to do with their wealth. So blackface is also a part of it, but it's done with soot. But it's actually not connected to the minstrel blackface that we've seen in America in that racist, unfortunate past that we have. It's really not the same thing. It's that I think he works like kind of in the coal scuttle, or it's sort of implied that he is, or that he's just, they're trying to get him into the part of, oh yes, this really is a goat man and he's got a dirty, sooty face. The fun parts through art within our dark fantasies so that we can face our monsters and even become monstrous for a short period of time with our creative takes on the masks and the outfits. There's also a level of cultural outlook that I had mentioned before being represented with the materials. It shows memory and meaning within the community about our ideas about Krampus say a lot about us as a culture. And it's such a strange thing, right? Like the joining together of like violence and punishment with treats. Krampus also does this. Bad kids don't get coal. They get dragged to hell. it sounds like a really good way to reinforce. It sounds like a way to reinforce good behavior. Don't be bad or Krampus will get you. But like once again, it fosters a healthy relationship to darkness for children, something controlled and fun so that they're not truly afraid. The supernatural often functions this way as a behavioral controller, but I really think there is this relationship to children having to come face to face with darkness because there is darkness in the world. We wish that there wasn't. We wish that this world was completely safe for kids, but in this way, they get to meet the darkness without ever truly being in danger. And then if you really think about like what Christmas means to a child, it's almost always about the gifts. And I can't help but wonder if Christmas itself, in the way it's commercialized, in the way that at times it's celebrated in the US, is actually the problem. Meanwhile, like people who love Christmas and love everything about it, they often point fingers at things like Krampus and go, oh no, that's wrong, that's evil. That's why that they're like, oh, this is horrible, why are you doing this to kids? And it's like, well, the way you're doing it is giving them kind of an unhealthy idea of what it is to be an adult and what it is to celebrate this holiday. We all phase out of it, of course, and we stop being kids who are just excited about gifts. And usually then is when it starts to become more about family and the things I think Christmas should be about. But I don't know. I wonder if they're developing a healthy view of what Christmas means when it's all focused on consumerism, right? And holiday excess consumerism is actually a big problem. All ages are involved in these they're also called Krampus runs. And to Americans, I do think this looks odd. Also, another thing about that is that there is this idea that we need to sanitize the world for children. So once again, going back to that relationship with darkness, that children need to be protected. When it's like if they're protected too much, though, they won't know darkness when they see it, right? Because darkness mostly in our world comes in the form of other human beings. Not everybody is a good person. So I think shielding them and not doing things like Krampus runs. I mean, naturally, I'm biased. I just want to do a Krampus run. I think it'd be so much fun. But also, yeah, like, why are we so intent on trying to sanitize everything down? Because if you look at, say, the original fairy tales, those have been sanitized down to bare bones till they're almost not recognizable from the original story. Just because they're taking out all the cannibalism and the cutting off toes and all the crazy stuff. But the thing is, kids are actually fascinated by things like that. I think I would probably give my kids both. I don't have children, so I have no idea. But I would probably give them both. I would give the Grimm's version and like the soft, happy version. Because there are times in life where we don't want to read the dark, true tale, right? We want to cozy up into bed with the comfortable, sweet version that cuts out all the bad. But at other times, we're like, tell me the true story. Let's hear it. This sounds crazy. So, I don't know. More random commentary from a folklorist. And going back to what I said before, that these rowdy parties that we have surrounding Krampus, they're mostly for adults. Well, and Krampus, Belsnickel, all of these types of Christmas monsters, right? They are mostly for adults, especially as they like move deeper into the night when kids already went to sleep. Festivals can also become really commodified when they grow in popularity, and it results in a lot of mass marketed, non-authentic packaged crap that passes itself off as reality. And you can actually see this in things like the voodoo market in New Orleans. Everybody knows that New Orleans is the birth of more modern voodoo, right? Haitian voodoo is a whole different concept. Most people don't know that. Hoodoo is different. Conjure is different. But the tourist kitsch that you see in shops is not voodoo. It's like white people came in and were like, this is what I understand about your culture, and then tried to mass market it and produce it and sell it. And that's what I mean by commodification. It's a process where things stop being about the festival and start being about the money. But the upside to the fact that people are being exposed to this type of commodified voodoo is that it makes people look into the real stuff at times. It's not always. what happens. And yeah, there is a real problem with being like, oh my gosh, I got a voodoo doll, or I don't know. I think the voodoo doll is what is most well known, but that's not actually a concept in voodoo. It is something that is from hoodoo, which is magic. They think, oh my gosh, here's a voodoo doll. I'm in danger. There are pins in it. Oh my gosh, I need to get rid of this thing. And it's like, no, because that's not a thing. Puppets are a thing. Puppets are like little doll-like personifications meant to represent that person, but it's not used in that way. That's just an idea that people got probably from seeing puppets and then imposing their own ideas about what was going on. There's good and bad with commodification and how commodified festivals and figures like Krampus become, because we, at the same time, if it's not commodified, here's the other end of that. If it's not commodified, no one's going to know what it is. And that's another problem. Not everybody's sitting here reading folklore books like me. They may not know that a figure like Krampus even exists. Or if they do go to a Krampus run, maybe they run into it organically. I know more on the East Coast. They have a lot cooler things. Honestly, everything cool is over there. I wish I lived closer. You might go to one and be like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And then you learn about it from that way. So because it became commodified and became a much larger entity, people are learning about Krampus for the first time. Now, the commercialization of Christmas association is really brought to the forefront of the Krampus movie, which came out in 2015. So this is a story about a family who have internal problems with each other, and in a fit of anger, the youngest, who is also a true believer in Santa Claus and in Christmas, rips up his letter to Santa, which unleashes Krampus on his family. And Krampus kills them one by one. And the first scene in the movie at all is the satire of what Christmas had become. Except it's not satire if you really think about it. People used to beat the crap out of each other on Black Friday to go get those deals. They used to bust down the doors to do their special holiday shopping because Black Friday, Christmas, all of these things are huge consumer holidays, right? Corporations make a ton of money. Their profit margins, I think, are mostly from this time of year. It's total chaos in the first scene of this movie. People are throwing each other out of the way, fighting over presents. And it really seems to communicate that Christmas is not about the sacred, like the church stuff, or even about family anymore. Like this idea of what it once was. It was once about these things. I think, though, at the same time, that's a concept that is rooted in what people think is tradition instead of what it actually is. Christmas used to be a boisterous, rowdy, alcoholic celebration before Victorian Christmas came in. It was like, no, we're going to change this. A lot of random things happened during the Victorian age, and I can't remember the exact reason that it happened, but most likely because family became emphasized and children stopped working all the time because they were not considered adults anymore. And then the concept of childhood was born, which is weird even if you really think about it. That's why I use the term dark carnival to describe anything you could find at a carnival that is somehow evil in horror movies, because what it's doing is it's bringing in adults who are like, what is going on here? While also exposing that there's something a little wrong with childhood, a little demented. Like just some of the things we did, some of the things we played, like with dolls. Dolls are a little weird. I mean, I'm not personally bothered by them, but they're a little weird. Certain dolls make you go, this is nightmare fuel. This is going to kill me in my sleep. I just know it. But anyway, Victorian Christmas brought civility into the picture, and now Christmas is an entirely new beast. It is packaged, bought, and sold. In some ways, I think we've moved away a lot from the idea that Christmas is even about family. And the movie design is really impressive. The word behemoth comes to mind when I look at this Krampus, and if you think I'm not someday going to get a life-size Krampus to put on my chimney, you are wrong. So just know I'm going to be the Krampus house. Anyway, he has gigantic horns. He has chains that fall from his dark Santa attire. He offers oppression, not gifts. And his face literally looks like he ripped off Santa Claus's face and wore it. It's great. His hands are long and unnatural, like what you'd imagine a demon looks like, because perhaps Krampus is a demon. For all we know, right? Naturally, like, I was like, the second I saw this movie again, because I'd seen it when it first came out, and I was like, I don't know what that's about, but all right. I wasn't that into folklore at the time. Like, I love stories, but it wasn't focused. So I think I was just like, oh, that's cool. And then just put it down and didn't pick it up again for several years. I saw it again and I was like, this is fucking amazing. I love this movie. It's basically part of my personality during this time of year. And I told my husband, like, yeah, we need a Krampus display stat. So again, my house will be the Krampus house. I'll have the elves. I'll have all sorts of stuff. And if you really think about it, Christmas is expensive. When I was decorating for the first time for Christmas, not living with my parents, who have been collecting their entire Christmas collection, which is pretty extensive for the better part of 20 years. Actually, no, longer than that. I'm almost 30. I'll be 30 in March. So 29 years that they've been married. And I was amazed how much bulbs for the tree, garlands, lights, the whole thing that I am used to because of that collection that they've amassed. It is crazy expensive and on some level really truly is a business. It's not about giving, it's about selling. And think about how early stores start showing off their Christmas stuff. The deals that they offer. Buy it here before it's too late. The best gifts are here. This is the perfect gift. How dare you get them anything else? Christmas shouldn't be about gifts or about spending money, but on some level, it really is now. Consumerism and capitalism have taken over until it's some weird farce of what it should be and maybe what the Victorians originally had in mind. I'd have to go deeper into what the Victorians wanted when they first started this, but I don't think this was the end goal, but that's what it's become. And there's also this huge dinner, and think about how much that costs. Creating this beautiful Christmas Eve dinner for everybody, or Christmas Day, depending on how you celebrate. I think we do that on Christmas Day, which irritates me to no end because I'm like, I want to eat it tonight, man. That beautiful honey ham. We get a ham for Christmas. Turkey for Thanksgiving. I'm not really a turkey fan. I'm a ham girl. I love the ham. And there is this whole part of American Horror Story Asylum, which was not my favorite season. It was just a little much with the aliens. Like, I don't even know how I feel about aliens, but I'm like, these ones are not real. So Satan, I guess, possesses a nun. And Satan comes in with the Christmas decorations, which are actually related to Yule. Like, anything you think of when you think of Christmas that is not explicitly about Jesus or the Nativity or the three wise men, any of that, it is Yule. It is appropriated from Yule, which is a pagan holiday, of trying to make light during a dark time of the year. That was the whole purpose of it. And to feel probably very close to your loved ones. So Yule is what we should be celebrating, personally, is what I think. But instead, what we're celebrating is capitalistic greed. But yeah, the reindeer, the tree, the lights, literally all of it is Yule. And Christianity weaved itself into it and took it for themselves. But the point of this season is that Satan brings in all the Christmas decorations because some people view that sort of like Yuletide celebration as an insult to God, right? Because they're not related to God. The reindeer, the lights, the tree, none of this is related to God. And I guess I get that, but also I believe in God. So I'm like, why would God want us to suffer? This is a dark time of the year. Why not try to brighten up our worlds a little bit? That is what God, I think, is supposed to do for us. That's what religion is supposed to do when it's not toxic. The idea of hating other people or excluding them, that's not what God's about. That's not what Jesus was about either. If you really look in the Bible, God didn't hate anybody and neither did Jesus. And Jesus was all about like the poor and that greed never gets you anywhere. Like Jesus would be flipping tables at these like holiday Black Friday events because he'd be pissed. I think he would be like, this is not right. But Yule itself, connecting to your loved ones, trying to make light, I don't think that's a problem. I celebrate both because I feel the changes in the earth, like, which sounds weird when you say it out loud, but as a geomantic psychic. So I can feel when we shift from Samhain into Yule. to Yule into Imbolc. You know, all these different shifts. I don't feel it for some reason in the middle of the year, but I celebrate it because there's something very beautiful about it to me. That's just me. That's how I view that. But the whole idea that, you know, God is offended by us trying to create light and be close to each other and give love, that doesn't ring true to me. But whatever. We're allowed to think what we want. That's why we have minds. Christmas, to me, has two parts as a festival. There's the secular decoration Yule aspect, and then the sacred or family aspect. In American culture, they exist side by side and sometimes, unfortunately, independently of each other. Most people incorporate both if they're religious, so nativity scenes may be alongside tree and lights and all that stuff. Our Victorian notions of how Christmas is supposed to be celebrated is what's informing our celebration. It's not an attack or a rebellion against the sacred, I don't think. But I do think at times Christmas has become a business. It's incredibly expensive to celebrate it. And anybody who has just gotten out on their own and wants to get a tree and all that stuff that they remember from their own childhoods, I bet you know what I'm talking about. I've had to collect, and I still have a third of the things I want to celebrate with because I haven't had 20 years to, well, technically almost 30. I haven't had almost 30 years to be able to amass my Christmas collection yet. It's going to take some time. Christmas has festival aspects in the way that it's celebrated, though it's mostly rituals. Now, being that I think the way that I do could be the folklore education, I don't know, but I see everything that we do, all of those traditions that we have. Maybe you bake cookies with your families on a certain day, or you have a certain movie on when you decorate the tree, or you put on Christmas music, or those things are ritual. If you think about it, especially if you do it the same exact way each time. So Christmas has a lot of ritualistic aspects as a celebration. It makes you wonder, really, why do we need these monsters in our Christmas, a time of joy? But again, if you think about Yule, maybe humans need the dark sides to boost the light. At such a dark time, is it so hard to believe that dark forces could be at work? The way I kind of imagine it is, if you've seen Rise of the Guardians, I imagine it kind of like, so Pitch is the bad guy in this movie, and he has this really pretty, like, it looks like blue goldstone or whatever that sparkly one is called, where his darkness coats everything, and all he wants in the world are nightmares and darkness, and he goes against the Guardians who try to protect the children of the world and protect their dreams. So we have the Sandman, who's the direct opposite of Pitch. We have Santa Claus, who brings joy to children. We have the Easter Bunny, and, you know, all these different, and the Tooth Fairy. So it's not hard to believe that during such a dark time of year that dark things could possibly be happening outside of the light that we're trying to create. And maybe we need that dark. We need to be reminded that we create our own light. So, you know, some inspiration during these hard times, because I think it's hard times for everyone. I don't know about you, but I am not having a good time with 2023. Maybe Yule and Christmas now is a management of the darkness instead of running from ourselves and our dark sides. From reading about the many Christmas monsters, I think it's a way to balance our own light and darkness in ourselves, in our society, in our households. These monsters function to make sure those who are naughty, usually children, because if you really think about it, kids are not awesome all the time. And it's because they need to be taught there are certain ways that you need to act in order to fit into society successfully. They are scared into behaving and being good at times. And then, you know, there's my commentary on the commercialization of Christmas. Is this holiday truly about family anymore, or is it about the greed of gifts, of buying lights and creating a spectacle so that we can show off our wealth? There's this scene my dad references all the time in Red, the movie with Bruce Willis, and he's like, I think he was a former operative and he is now retired. And he doesn't really know how to be retired. It's very boring for him. Like, it should be peaceful, but it's not. And he looks around at his neighborhood and everybody has lights but him. And my dad's like, yeah, that was our first year in Illinois because we lived there for a few years. We had gotten a house and we were like, we're gonna need some lights, like, just to fit in. Because we were literally the only house on the block that did not have lights. So it's like a funny story about Christmas peer pressure. Or like, if you've seen Christmas with the Cranks, there's this whole thing about this gigantic Frosty statue that they all decorate the entire block for Christmas because they participate in like a contest for who has the best lights in the neighborhood or who has the best street in multiple neighborhoods. And they didn't finish well because there was this one house that didn't want to do it because their daughter had gone away for Christmas. She was going to spend it in like Thailand or something, and she had gone away, so they didn't really want to celebrate it. They were a little depressed. They missed their kid, so they were like, hey, let's go on a cruise. And you should totally do whatever you want to do, but there is this like peer pressure of you need to get into Christmas because what are you doing if you don't? Where are we going to go for our Christmas Eve party? What am I going to do about this, about that? Like, what about my gift for this year? Like, people, I just don't think it's about the right things. And they eventually they do end up having to throw the party on because she comes home randomly. But one of the big battles is that their neighbors were like, we will put up Frosty for you, just leave it outside. And it's this gigantic statue of like Frosty the Snowman. You need help to do it. It's like you need the community to help you with this. Because it's too big, and there's a whole scene where he nearly dies trying to put up Frosty by himself. Ultimately, the community comes together, and they shouldn't have peer pressured them, let's be honest, into doing all this. But at the last minute, they decide to put on the party, and everybody helps. And I think that's the important part. There is this level of community in Christmas, and a sense of let's all help each other, let's do good things, let's try to have goodwill towards our fellow man. But that doesn't come across always. And capitalism, I think, ruins that. Not all the time, because lately I've been trying to get people gifts that I think they could really use. Something they'll get a lot of use out of. Or something that would mean a lot to them and make them feel seen, even if it was something small. So, I don't know. Christmas monsters are fascinating and I love them. But I also wonder if maybe we need to bring them back. Cut away the excess. Because there's way too much holiday unhappiness. I see a lot of people have trauma at this time of year, maybe because of their family, maybe their family members are no longer with us. I can understand that because it's not always a happy time of year. I unfortunately know way too many people who don't like this holiday. But at the same time, there are ways to get back into it in the Yule aspect. Christmas itself isn't always a fun holiday. And I think that's kind of what these Christmas monsters represent. They represent the dark and the things that we fear. Part of the reason I even started this episode and the research for it is because my mom made a comment to me. And yeah, basically comments, questions, all sorts of things just become episodes because that's who I am as a person. If you've been listening this long, you probably know that. But she was like, why would anybody want something as dark as Krampus to think about during Christmas? And it's because this is a dark time of year. He represents things to us. Maybe not to us specifically Americans, but he is spreading. He's a really interesting character, right? But it's not supposed to be about the things that I feel it is now. It's not about the lights or the snow or the gifts or the tree. It's about, I think, love and showing love and crowding together in front of the fire, maybe to tell some spooky stories like we did in the old days. Which might be a bit of a romanticization. I bet it was cold, and that's why they were crowded around the fire. But I bet they told stories because it was fun and because it was easy for everyone to participate. It was a way to be closer together, not just physically as you were huddling around the fire, but emotionally. Create the ties, create the ways that your family could celebrate during such a dark time. Because, yeah, it's literally the darkest part of the year. That is not a metaphor. Like, we get dark over here at, like, 4:30. It's crazy. Like, I'll look outside and suddenly it's night. And it's like, what the hell? But the point is that I think Christmas and Yule, all of it should be about love. And here's another thing. What if Krampus was not originally evil? What if Krampus is like the evolution of what mankind has gone through when it comes to society, family, greed? What if he was turned into a monster because of that? And then it also makes you wonder, are the Christmas monsters us? Are we the true Krampus? Our society, our way of doing things now, greed. Are we the real Christmas monsters? Because this is not a holiday that everybody loves. It's a holiday a lot of people love. And that's great that people have those beautiful memories of Christmas. I don't know. I think it's possible that we've really strayed pretty far. Like there's that joke, like every day we stray farther from God's light whenever somebody does something really crazy. But it's like maybe we've just strayed away from each other too. There's a really serious lack of connection in the world. There's a lot of loneliness. And especially around the holidays, what are you doing to create light in your home and maybe to extend goodwill to others and make people feel thought of and loved in your life? Just something to think about. Anyway, here are some other really interesting Christmas monsters that I came upon from different countries. We have Neckt Ruprecht, and I have no idea if I'm saying that correctly. He's another companion of St. Nicholas along with Krampus, because Krampus, I believe, kind of started as like the inverse. He's the binary opposite of St. Nicholas, who, brought gifts and such, and eventually became Santa Claus. But he's like a manservant, Neckt Ruprecht, and he'll either reward you or punish you if you can pray. He gives you good things to eat, or he hits you with his bag of ashes. There is no in between. Other traditions have him gifting bad kids with coal or giving them a switch for their parents to beat you with. What psychological torture is this, Neckt? And he was not messing around. Either he is Krampus himself in another form, or where the character of Krampus like actually began, which then, morphed into Krampus. So it's hard to say, but there's also La Befana in Italy. I had a student who told me, because I had done, of course, being me, a Christmas lesson on Krampus. It was Yuletide season, and he was like, oh yeah, like we do something like that, but it's with a witch from Italy named La Befana. And I was like, oh, that's super cool. So I looked into it. And also Babushka from Russia. So it's a sort of like fairy tale witch who goes around punishing the lazy while providing riches to the hardworking. She searches every household for Jesus because originally she declined to help the wise men look for him. So now she's continually searching. According to the story, and if she finds any children, she leaves cookies and gifts behind for them. Best to leave some wine and food out for her. Sounds kind of like an offering up to a deity figure if you think about like why we do that. Normally in exchange for something or out of the goodness of one's heart, like Santa works hard, we should feed that man. Or it's like we need to feed Santa or he won't bring us good stuff. Like it just depends on how you kind of view that. There's something so comforting about this type of character. Not only do the assholes of the world get what's coming to them, but we have this kindly magic lady who rewards good, who's being nice to kids she finds, even if they aren't Jesus. Somebody should tell her that he's not here anymore, but hey, like, what bad is she doing by searching for him? I don't know. Anyway, there's Grýla from Iceland. She's an Icelandic troll and perpetually hangry monster that comes down to devour children. So she's on the inverse of La Befana and Babushka. She comes down on Christmas to collect the bad children to boil in a stew. And she has 13 sons called the Yule Lads, and the Yule Cat is her pet. Unlike Grýla, the Yule Cat straight up does not care if you're a kid or an adult, good or bad, she will just eat you. So stay out of the cat's way. Best way to keep her away was to buy a new article of clothing. So it was like if you worked hard and you got everything done, you received, in tradition, a new piece of clothing. So it showed, once again, that whole like, if you're good, if you worked hard, you would not be eaten. What a joy. But, if you're not and you're lazy, you might. So another way to control the behavior of children. The Yule Lads are Grýla's 13 sons, and they represent different characteristics like the doorway sniffer and the bowl licker. They're usually seen as thieves or mischievous. Icelandic children are visited by them on the 13 nights leading up to Christmas. So that's gotta suck. There's Frau Perkta, who is a witch from Germany and Austria who doles out rewards for good and punishes for bad during the 12 days of Christmas. If you're bad, she rips out your intestines and fills them with trash, which feels like a commentary about people who are trash. It's like, well, you're going to act like trash. I'm going to fill you with trash. But it's a little terrifying. Once again, most monsters during this time of year, it seems, are aimed at making children behave so that they may enjoy the delights of the season instead of being punished for their faults. What's your favorite Christmas monster? What's the one that you're like, absolutely? And also, because next episode is actually going to be a demon episode, because I'm going to go into a case, and you're like, this lady talks about folklore all the time. Where are the demons? It is in the name. Don't worry. I'm incorporating more over the next year. It's just the last couple have been either I got really excited about it, like the Sirens episode, because I read this really good book on it, or because it was the time of year. So yeah, there's going to be more horror, more demon stuff. There aren't a ton of demon, like, episodes because there aren't a lot of demon cases that I think are genuine demons. So sorry, y'all. Demon Folklorist only has so many demons to analyze. But yeah, next one's going to be one for the start of January. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Happy Krampusnacht. Merry Christmas. Happy Yule. Happy Solstice. Whatever you happen to celebrate. And yeah, I hope these Christmas monsters do not visit you this year. See you later, guys.